This little car may be worth only 150 pesos to many people, but to me it's priceless. It represents my whole childhood. Some people say this is a problem, that romanticizing like this is a trap, that serious collecting isn't based on feelings, that you can't collect. But before I tell you why they're wrong, I want to ask you a question. When was the last time you felt invincible? I'm not talking about an achievement. I'm not talking about being rewarded for something at work. I mean that special feeling you had as a child, when the world seemed so big, even bigger than your problems, and you went out to play, you wore the claw and yelled thunder, 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 thundercats. Well, let me tell you that nowadays there are people who still hold on to this, to that feeling that some say is immaturity. But today in this video, I'm going to show you the complete opposite, with the story of a boy who had nothing. Imagine that it's 1986 and you're a boy. Your name is Paco. No Christmas toys, just promises, sometimes not even those. But there was a street market, there was a market. And in that street market, among used clothes, pots and scratched cassettes, there was a cardboard box. And in that cardboard box, there was a little car. It was small, it was orange, and its wheels were crooked, already a bit worn from use. But it only cost 2 pesos. Paco, the boy we're talking about, took it in both hands and kept it for years. Not because it was valuable, since value was irrelevant then, but because it was all he had. The years went by. Paco grew up, studied, started a family, and the time came when he could buy what he never could as a child. And what did he do? He went to the flea market and he looked for that little cart, not the same one. That one doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. He looked for the feeling he had at that moment when he found that little cart. Is that immaturity, or is it just a human feeling? But the little cart wasn't the only thing that could awaken that feeling, because at 4 in the afternoon on Channel 5, the TV would turn on. There was a great castle in the mountains of Eternia. There was a prince who raised his sword, and there was a voice that echoed in that small room. In that house, without money, there was a moment of light. There was a moment when he could be free and shout, by the power of Grayskull. And Paco was no longer in that room. He was no longer in Mexico. He was already somewhere else. He was in Eternia, in a place where good always won, in a place where they gave you advice and made you feel good, where it wasn't just entertainment. They taught you useful things for your own life. Don't talk to strangers, use companionship to grow, always be a better person, and many other things.
Being brave doesn't mean facing dangerous things alone. It also means having the strength to say no.
In that cartoon, you learned that the strongest used their power to protect. There was no need to crush, no need to break, no need to destroy. You always had to create. It was a unique moment for Paco. Do you understand what I'm telling you? For a child who had nothing, that character wasn't just entertainment. He was a role model to follow. Time goes by. Years pass, Paco grows up. He's already in his 40s, he gets married, has a family, has a job because he studied, he works hard every day. And those he loves don't lack anything. But suddenly one day, while browsing the internet, he sees an ad, a special edition He-Man figure, the same one he had, or the one he wanted as a child, but couldn't afford. The same shield, but now with more details than in the 80s, it was impossible to recreate. The figures back then were very basic. Nowadays, you can make better things. And something awakens in Paco's chest. He feels that sensation, that excitement of being able to reach that moment when he was a child and shouted for the power of Grayskull. Is he romanticizing it? Yes, he is romanticizing it. Absolutely. There's no room for debate. And why shouldn't he do it? Paco puts in the effort. He fulfills his goals. He doesn't take anything from anyone. And that figure in his display case isn't a toy. It's a conversation piece and a childhood memory. In my case, I was a huge fan of Munra. I loved him, but it was impossible to have a figure like that. So when one comes out, the first thing I do is buy it. And it's not because it's expensive or because it's cheap. That doesn't matter anymore. Because at the end of the day, as long as my family doesn't lack anything, I'm not doing anything wrong. And yes, I am romanticizing it because this guy was the best for me. I always wanted him to win. He never made it. But in the end, he was the one I identified with because he was different. And he's a part of my story from when I felt free. And yes, I know what you're going to say. Companies use that to sell to you. And you're right. I completely agree with you. Mattel, Hasbro, and all the toy companies know exactly what they're doing when they release a special edition. They know there are millions of Pacos in the world and that they sell them as a ticket back to eternity. They know they're going to exploit your feelings. Is that manipulation? Yes, you're absolutely right. It is manipulation, but listen to me and remember this because it's really important. Life is short, we're not eternal. And if in this life that ends very soon, a figure on a shelf reminds you who you were, who you are, and what you had planned for yourself. When you were a child, it makes you feel free and it makes you feel good. What's wrong with that? Why do people nowadays refuse to feel that emotion? I know these are tough times, but you can still buy something like that for a memory. This claw only costs 100 pesos, but if you put it here, it can remind you and motivate you to do many things. So no. The problem isn't that companies romanticize things. The issue is romanticizing what you can't afford. When the figure enters your house and you can't pay rent, that's when it's wrong. Not nostalgia. That's a wound you're covering with plastic, and that deserves a deeper conversation. It's not something someone on the internet can tell you. You need to ask for help if you're really spending money you don't have. There's a critical argument that worries me a lot. There are very smart people in this world of collecting who say, you have to separate emotion from analysis. That if you buy an item because it reminds you of your childhood, you're making an irrational decision. Irrational. In their false argument, they say that a serious collector should know how much their piece is worth, what it will cost in the future, and how much they can resell it for. Nostalgia can't be resold. What your heart feels for a figure, for a little car, can't be resold. It doesn't have a resale value because it's something that's for you. It's yours. They also say that nostalgia is a marketing trick and that they exploit it. And I'm not going to tell you that it's true. Nostalgia is a marketing trick and they do exploit it. You're right about something important. There are people who have spent money on toys they don't need. There are families who have gone into debt. There are people who confuse the hobby with the identity they lost because of this. And that exists and it's real and it needs to be said. But it doesn't mean that all collectors are fools. It doesn't mean that people don't know this exists. But unfortunately, there are people who assume that and talk about it as if it were very important when it's not. And they have channels and make videos exploiting it and repeating it hundreds of times. But here's the question nobody asks. How many people have healed by buying a toy car? How many people have healed by romanticizing a toy car? Now, at this moment, I want to ask a question to those people who have these channels and talk about that. Have you noticed how many people heal by romanticizing an object? Do you know how many people have quit addictions, worked through illnesses, have overcome real problems with a figure they romanticize? Do you know how many people's lives changed by collecting a toy, a Hot Wheels, and modifying them? You don't know, because you're locked up at a desk talking about arguments that aren't true, and in the end, you just resell things. That's what's sad about this. But I can tell you. Why? Because I've been out on the street, because I've gone to the markets and I've asked around, and that hug someone gives you when you meant something in their life, and they tell you, thanks to the way I romanticized this toy, I was able to change my life. They can quit drinking. They can quit their addictions. Today I can be someone because I have a business now. Nostalgia, romanticism, is not weakness. Psychologists have been studying this for decades, and they really studied it. And what they found is counterintuitive. Nostalgia doesn't make you live entirely in the past. Nostalgia brings you to the present. When a person remembers something positive from their childhood, their brain releases exactly the same compounds as when they experienced it. That is, if as a child you found a figurine and this car made you feel good. Now as an adult, when you find it, it's going to make you feel the same way. You're going to feel that same adrenaline, that same dopamine. It's not an escape, it's emotional regulation, because we're human beings, we're irrational beings. You know what's sad? The inconsistency of the criticism towards romanticizing. The same critic says they have their favorite piece, that piece they found at the flea market. They often criticize buying at the flea market, but they cherish the piece they found there and would never sell it. They keep their childhood piece too. They do it too, they just don't admit it. We all have a Paco inside us. The difference is that I do admit it. And so do the people who buy things for the sake of romanticizing. People who have something to romanticize do accept it. But they don't, because they always have to go against it and try to disguise it by saying they're doing things right in collecting. There's no right or wrong, just like in life. There are only different points of view. Now, romanticizing doesn't mean losing control. There's a big difference between a man who buys a Hot Wheels because it reminds him of his little son watching him play, and one who spends his whole paycheck chasing the most valuable, sought-after piece someone else owns. That's where it's wrong. The first one is healing something. The first has a memory and experience. The second is running away from something. He leaves things undone because of that collection. And no one teaches you that that's different, because those who criticize romanticization lump both together when each person is different. What I'm proposing to you is something different. Romanticize, but with your eyes open. You have money for that little car. You like it, buy it, enjoy it, put it in your display case, and look at it when you're stressed, when you really need it. If your son has already left, he's grown up and you miss him, and he left you a piece like this, there's nothing wrong with romanticizing it. If this piece reminds you of the child you once were, who had many dreams and couldn't buy it for yourself. That's what you work for. It's okay. Now you have it. Wait, that little car will still be there, and you'll be able to find it later. Don't get desperate. First, keep your feet on the ground. But let's go back a little to Paco's story. Paco found a little car that's not the same, but just like his. He paid for it himself, without owing anyone anything. He cleaned it, kept it in his little plastic box. He didn't sell it. He didn't show it off. He didn't post it on social media. He doesn't have it posted anywhere. He put it in a box where he keeps his favorite things, because that little car wasn't worth 200,000 pesos or even 10,000. It was worth an afternoon when he was a kid in the 80s. The 80s, when a boy chased his happiness, spent his time running, playing marbles, and doing things with it. You can't analyze that coldly. It's not something you can think about. Do the math or do something smart, because it's not smart. It's just a kid playing. That's all. Anyone who doesn't understand that likely never had an afternoon like that. He could never imagine that with that little cart he was jumping around. He felt like he had an original generale, that he was Duke's brother, that he was He-Man, that he raised that sword. If you don't get it, sorry, but you never played. But you know what? Now that I'm looking at it objectively, I understand something that I couldn't explain before. I understand why young people don't romanticize things the way we used to. I'm not saying it as a criticism. Don't take it personally. I'm saying it as an honest question. Here's the direct... How are you going to romanticize something if you never really had anything that made you feel that way? And it makes perfect sense. Today's movies entertain, they do their job, and then you forget about them. Series last 3 seasons, and they cancel them before you even care about the main character. Sometimes you don't even get to know them, and the content is just endless scrolling. You spend hours scrolling on your phone for dopamine, but it doesn't give you identity. The problem with quick dopamine is that it doesn't leave a scar. And nostalgia leaves you with scars. The scars came from that episode you waited so long for, because it was the season finale. After a tough week at school, from that character, from that He-Man who was always with you when you had to go out on the street and you had to follow his advice because they left us alone. Those scars are built over time, with scarcity, with childhood, but also with romanticizing. So before telling us that we shouldn't romanticize, first tell me, what do you have to romanticize? Tell me which character saved you from a bad afternoon, from an afternoon of scolding, from a tough afternoon with your parents. Because before, guess what? Back then they didn't scold us. They hit us. Tell me what object made you feel that the world wasn't so cruel. Tell me which character planted in you the need to raise a sword. Which one? Pick it. And if you have an answer for this, then we could talk. Because if you don't have an answer, it means what you really have is envy. And envy of what? I'll tell you straight out. We really did have that kind of childhood. Yes, with hardships, with different things. But at the end of the day, a childhood that gave us He-Man, that gave us Hot Wheels, that gave us Spider-Man. Because no, Spider-Man isn't from their time. Thundercats. Everything that works today, let me tell you, it's from before 1980. And no, I'm not a psychologist. I don't have a psychology master's degree. I'm 50 years old, but I have a son. And I've spent 10 years telling stories about toys. And what you learn today, I hope it helps you. And stop feeling jealous of others. Instead, get to work. That's what's hurting you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Give it a like and share it. I'm Tonio Alba. See you next time. Romanticize, do whatever you want. Don't let anyone tell you how to collect. In the end, just do it responsibly. That's right. act responsibly and do it well. That's what really matters. See you next time. Be happy. Big kiss. Goodbye. Bye.